Good morning to you all. It's Alan Kinsey. It's a live chat with Charles Matope, all the way from Australia, one of my old countrymen, a very good friend of mine. Welcome, Charles.
Thanks, Alan.
All the best to you and your family for the Christmas season and the holiday seasons.
Same to you, my friend.
Yeah, and everybody that's listening here, I hope they have all had a good one. Charles, we both come from the same country. Tell us about yourself. Where you grew up, how your whole journey in life, basically.
All right. So I was born in a little town called Kadoma. During those days, it was called Gatuma. During the Rodi days, it's a town which is in the middle part of Zimbabwe. I was born in 1972. My father was just like a laborer at one of the big companies there in that little town. And we were not a religious family. I don't ever remember when I was young any day that we went to church. My father did have a Bible. And I remember when I was very young, he bought me some Bible storybooks that I did read, that was my first encounter with the stories of Noah and the flood and all those kind of things. And it was mostly like illustrated pictures and a few writings in there. And that's when I first encountered people drowning and dying outside the ark, and sort of it confronted me. I remember I was still very, very young and maybe about 7 years old. But anyway, my parents passed away when I was just about to go into high school. I lost both parents due to some natural causes, really. And then when I went to high school, I became a little bit of a communist, from reading just like Karl Marx literature. That's when I started getting in touch with the literature that was anti-religion, so to speak. The writings of Karl Marx and him, saying religion is the opium of the people. The thing that people mostly quote about him. But when I finished my high school, I then became religious. It was mostly due to the fact that most of my friends were in my close circles. They became Christian, Pentecostal Christians, you see. And they invited me to their churches. I went in there, started, believing the whole thing about, the rapture and the world coming to an end and all that kind of crap. And then I got married as a Christian, but my wife wasn't really so much into it. I was just dragging her into it myself. I stayed about 4 or 5 years in the Christian church, where I noticed a lot of hypocrisy and a lot of bad stuff going on. And then eventually I decided that I had enough due to some incidences that had happened with some pastors borrowing money from me and not giving back my money and all the little hypocrisy. So I decided, I've had enough. Then, I stopped going to the Christian church. This almost now about more than 20 years ago.
Yeah, so you're talking about the 80s, 90s?
That was around maybe 1999, going into 2000.
Oh, so not so long ago. Oh, well, actually, it's long ago, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Time does fly, yeah. But I then spent a bit of time in Zimbabwe. I became more involved in the politics of the country with the opposition party in Zimbabwe. Eventually, that was a disaster. It got me into trouble.
Our Uncle Bob.
Yes. So actually, the thing is, I actually was working for a hospital that he actually built in a place called Kutama, which is his home area. So he built a hospital there called Father O'Hare Hospital. And this Father O'Hare Hospital, he got the Catholics to manage the hospital, but he actually just owned the hospital. So I worked there. But then I started getting involved with the opposition with when the MDC was formed in 1999. And then Eventually, they discovered that I was actually an underground member of the opposition. And then I was evicted from, from Kutama. Like, I was given just 1 hour notice to vacate the place and to take my family, my belongings that I could carry with me. And my security was only guaranteed for an hour. If I had stalled there for more than an hour, they were going to kill all of us. So anyway, to cut the long story short, I left and went to the south of, I'm not sure whether you are familiar with the south of Zimbabwe, a place called Triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I went and started working in Triangle with their hospital, their Colin Saunders Hospital. So I worked there for about 4 years, and then I was so involved in the politics and eventually started getting targeted by ZANU-PF. I decided to leave the country, take my family out. So we went to New Zealand in 2004. When I got to New Zealand, that's when I got into the literature of atheism and starting to get access to books like, like reading Richard Dawkins and Daniel, what's his name? Daniel Dennett, yeah. And Sam Harris and all the and Hitchens, of course, the four horsemen, so to speak.
You actually met, you met Richard, didn't you?
Yeah. I met Richard Dawkins when he came here, not like on a personal level, but just at a presentation where, because the atheist convention is actually done in Australia, and there is quite a lot of like atheist like conferences that are done in Sydney. So I saw him twice actually. One time he was just by himself. Then the second time it was him and Professor Lawrence Krauss. The physicist. Yeah. It was very good. And I went with my daughters to that one and they really appreciated it.
As your daughters are also atheists like you?
One does identify as atheist. The other one, she says, look, I don't want to have myself a label. I hate these labels like agnostic, atheist, this, I'm just me, but I don't believe these things. I don't believe in, they are not religious, both of them are
not. I suppose it gets labeling is something that can be off-putting. It actually can give people a bad name when it's not actually a bad name. Like an atheist has got a negative, very negative when it's
that's
not.
Right. That's right. And I found that most of the times, like when I'm talking to my friends, the moment they ask me, oh, which church, in the Zimbabwean community, that question always comes, like, which church do you go to, And whenever I say I'm an atheist, you can see their countenance change straight away. Like, it's as if you have said you are just the devil incarnate, That's right.
Crucifixes come out.
Exactly.
Yeah. And now
now I'm in here in Australia, and I continued reading quite a lot of literature, trying to really get to understand where the truth about life, the meaning of life and stuff like that. But through listening to all the debate, especially Christopher Hitchens, I've listened to almost every debate that he had with religious people and Christian apologetics and stuff like that. I got convinced that religion is not the thing, and I formed my own truth. And I don't identify like most atheists who say, oh, look, even Richard Dawkins says, I'm 98, does he say 98% atheist?
Yeah, 98 or 99%, depending on the scale.
Myself, I'm 100% atheist. The reason why I say that, some people say, oh, but that's a very fundamentalist or radical kind of statement to make. But look, with me, the biggest question why I'm like that is the problem of evil. A world or a universe where evil exists as it does and suffering exists as it does not justify the existence of a God. Whether he's a good or a bad God, it doesn't.
Yeah. I'm I can't say 100% that I'm full atheist. I'm still I'm still a agnostic atheist. I just don't believe there's
All right.
evidence for it.
Yeah.
Now you see, because like saying that you've got a 100% belief that there is no God, that means you've got to be able to. It's a claim. It's a positive claim. You've got to be able to prove it. And that's where the difficulty comes in, because you cannot prove that God doesn't exist. This is my argument.
All right. But if you look at the nature of evil, if you have got a God as defined by religion, a benevolent God, a loving God, a God who cares about the world. If you look at, let's say, the Catholic issues, with the Catholics abusing children, you would have to ask, why doesn't that God intervene? Why doesn't he do something about it? So that just disqualifies the existence of a benevolent or a loving God when you have got such cases happening on and on and on. The evil that humans have perpetrated against each other definitely disqualifies the existence of a loving God who's out there looking after the welfare of the universe and the welfare of human beings.
Right. That's more or less like what you call the Epicurus paradox, isn't it?
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And then if you look as well at the universe itself, and you say, okay, people say, oh, there's this exquisite laws of physics, fine tuning, but then there is things that happen in the universe that actually shows that lots of things in the universe are not fine tuned. They are just happenstance things.
Yeah, it's not a they say it's a calm, beautiful place, but it's not. The universe is not a very smooth running place at all.
That's true. That's true. Because you could imagine that, let's say, the collision of galaxies, for example, when galaxies collide, like the Andromeda is going to collide with us in the future. And these collisions have been happening like for billions or millions and billions upon billions of years, and it's possible that life has gone extinct in the universe in many places many times.
Correct.
Which does prove that the universe is not fine-tuned for life, but that life just occurs as part of the universe and adapts to its environment.
Yeah, if you're in the right environment, then life will grow. If the right chemical substances are there. I mean, we've already, if you look at what's his name, Fenta, he's already made life in a lab, which many Christians don't like to believe. They say, well, man can't make life, but he certainly has.
Yes. I guess why it's a challenge for scientists to reproduce life as it is, like on and on, over and over again, is to do with it's very hard sometimes to reproduce the environment as it was, like, when life first emerged on this planet. This planet has changed so much, the universe has changed quite a lot since the emergence of life. So to reproduce the actual conditions under a controlled environment can be very, very challenging. But yes, it has been done.
Yeah, I mean, millions and millions of years it took us to evolve. So you can't expect to be able to do anything in 5 minutes.
That's correct. That's very correct.
Coming back to the universe, as far as they're concerned, look, we know the Big Bang started. It was a Big Bang. That we don't know what happened before that, but we certainly know what's controlling the universe. What's his name? Hawking. I don't know if you've read any of his books, but it's dark matter. It's dark energy that really is pushing the universe.
Yeah.
It's controlling the universe. It's making it expand. Now, I think I can't remember where I read it. Where if dark energy, if the dark energy dies out or gets weaker, gravity will win out, and we'll have a collapse of the universe back to that little spot again.
Yeah.
If it's the other way around and dark energy wins out over gravity, then we'll be just an empty space in the end, because
everything will be torn apart.
It will expand and expand until there's nothing.
Yeah. I haven't read his book, but I think we're getting into the realms of science where these are the frontiers of science when you start talking about dark energy and dark matter. Because from what scientists say, they say, oh, look, what we know is about 5% of, we know that this dark matter is actually about 95% of the universe. Dark matter itself, but it's very hard to say exactly what it is, unless if you can actually isolate particles of dark matter, because it does seem that these particles don't interact with us as much as we would want them to do, so that we can actually isolate them, maybe in a collider or something like that.
Sort of break the laws of physics. That's what it's actually doing.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing already. We know it exists, but we don't know what it is.
Exactly. And my question,
of course, if you're a Christian, you call it God.
Yes, you would call it God, but then it is possible, though, that there is dark matter that has been demonstrated to be there. But beyond dark matter, there could be other states of the universe that are actually influencing dark matter and dark energy.
Yeah.
So
it could be in parallel universes.
You see, so we get into this idea of the multiverse, and
Yeah.
Personally, I this is my personal. I'm no scientist, but I've got my own personal thinking about it. That I think the universe itself is actually eternal. That's what we do interpret as the Big Bang, because a lot of people, like if you talk to a lot of people that are not really knowledgeable about scientific issues, they think that the Big Bang was an actual explosion, that not an expansion, but it is an expansion from a point where everything that we know, space, time, everything, all the matter was concentrated in a very, very tiny point, and it inflated from there, expanding and expanding. I think that Big Bang is actually a transitional phase in the universe, that it was a transition in the state of the universe, that beyond it, there is actually a state of the universe that could actually be understood as we go on colliding particles, and but I guess we got to wait for the scientists to bring out the information.
Matt Delanty explained it quite in his very eloquent way. Our universe was expansion, right? But the cosmos may have always been.
Yes.
Our universe may have had a beginning, but the cosmos itself could have been eternal, or could be eternal.
Yes.
So we can't say it's had a beginning, that something had a beginning. We had a beginning, but it doesn't mean that the cosmos didn't exist before that. And to call it God is not an option.
That's right. It's not. Then you would have to ask the question that Richard Dawkins asked, like, which God is it?
Yeah. So that's a normal question, is which God it is. Well, which God is it? Even in the Christian gods, how many gods are there within the Christian religion? So you can ask a Christian himself which God it is, because I mean, you and I both were Pentecostal. What I like to refer to as born again happy clappies. And we sort of lost everything. I think when we went down that route, I think we lost our whole brain, and we were different all the other Christians were going to hell, including especially the Catholics. Of course, the Catholics were.
You see, that's very true. I belonged to one of the most fundamentalist churches called the End Time Messages.
Oops, yeah.
And and we believe that everyone else except the people that were in the End Time Message will be raptured. We believed ourselves to be the bride of Christ, and everyone else was going to perish. But I've never asked you what's your story. It's because we only met and started debating each other. We met mostly in Zimbabwean groups, isn't it?
That's correct. That's where our friendship started, way back.
Yeah. And it has been like almost six years or so now, or perhaps.
I think it's longer than that, because it goes back to the first Patriot group.
Yes.
Before Mambo formed the second one, or Solomon, whatever his name is. I forget whichever name he wants to go with. So we go back quite a bit. I grew up in Rhodesia, then Rhodesia. I come from Bulawayo. I grew up in Bulawayo. I went to Milton High School. I obviously in the 70s, I was called up. Obviously fought for Rhodesia. In the army for what's it, flipping 7 8 years.
For Ian Smith, yeah.
I mean, we didn't know any difference. I mean, I went to school. I at 16 you registered for the army, and at 18 or 17 or 18 when you left school, you were in. You had no choice in the matter unless you.
Unless it was compulsory then, isn't it?
Correct. It was national service. You had to do it. If you said, all right, I'm not going to do it, and you went to South Africa, you'd do it anyway. Then you'd land up in the South African National Service. So the only way was to leave the Africa altogether. And I mean, at 18, you're still with your parents, and So obviously, I went. And I must say, it wasn't fun. We thought we were fighting for the good of the country. Obviously, there's a lot of people that still believe that Ian Smith was a hero. The only good example Ian Smith ever had was that he tried to look after his people. That's one thing that we can say he did do. But it wasn't all his people. It was just the
a section of the population. I think the person that had a correct vision, that perhaps that should have been embraced as early as possible, was Garfield Todd. I think Garfield Todd knew exactly that. I think from his experience in New Zealand, he knew that the best thing to do was to create a multicultural society. I think that vision should have been embraced then, but then I guess it's a story for another day.
Another day, UDI and all the rest of it we just went crazy, didn't we? So that was that. I started my trade in Rhodesia. I worked on the Rhodesian Railways. I met my wife there. Obviously, got married in and out of the army. Then I gave Uncle Bob Mugabe 2 years. And I realized 82. I said no. I mean, we already.
This is not happening.
So it was all right. It seemed to be going. It seemed to be starting to go in reverse. Now which you couldn't blame in many ways. That was now against the white person, so as to say. Which you couldn't actually blame it. But then he destroyed everything. I mean, after his genocide, the massacre.
In Matabeleland.
Yes, in the 80s. Yeah, in 80. I think it was 1980. Was it?
That was 1982.
Yeah, that's when I left in 82. It was enough. I said
it was visionary of you to have left then.
Yeah, I said, well, my kids need a future. What future? I could see that there was going to be no future because things were going down. You know, the education started to drop. I think you still managed to get quite a good education while it was still there. I mean, I think
Yeah,
Zimbabwe's education.
my generation was one of the lucky ones, you know.
Yeah, what year was that, Charles? 80s,
Be-
90s?
In 80s, I was in junior school, and I finished my high school in 1990.
Yeah, all right. So yeah, so you were just in that phase where before it went downhill completely.
Yes, because soon after we did Cambridge, Cambridge education,
correct, yeah.
and soon after we finished, then they kicked in some reforms where they said we want to be independent, want to do our own thing. And that's when everything started going downhill. But I'm of a different school of thought, because if you meet a lot of Zimbabweans, they'll tell you like, oh, look, Mugabe was very good initially. He got us educated and all that kind of thing. I don't buy that, because you see, when we got our independence in 1980, there was a lot of goodwill for Zimbabwe. There was a honeymoon period, a lot of monies and sponsorship from the British, from everyone, trying to help this new country. So you would expect that the benefits that we actually got in terms of education and other things was actually out of this goodwill that was flowing into the country, you see. But you could tell then that things are, because my father was ZAP, belongs to Joshua Nkomo's party, you see. And in 1983, our house was destroyed and our property was burned, and we nearly lost, all the family nearly perished then, so Mugabe was bad in 1983, he was bad in 1980,
No, that's right. I sometimes wonder what the difference would have been if Nakama had got it instead of Mugabe.
Yeah, that's the thing, you see, because he was more of a Mandela kind of person, very, very understanding, very wise leader. And,
I think the biggest mistake he did, I don't know if you can remember that far back, was the Viscounts. I think that was a mistake. That was a mistake, shooting down two Viscount aircraft, Victoria Falls time.
By the zebras,
Yeah, and then going through and killing the survivors. That was a bit of a no. But I know when I was in the army, Zipra didn't go after soft targets. Really, they went more after the army. The other fella, Zanu, of course, was another story.
Because even the training was very different from the way that the Zipra guerrillas had been trained. They were trained more as a conventional army, whilst the
Russians,
guerrillas were more like very, very ragtag rebel, like, we going in for the kill. We don't care what happens.
I think a lot of them were, what's his name, Mugabe's boys were trained in North Korea as well, weren't they?
Which was a very, very bad move by him.
That was the what was the 7th Brigade or whatever it was. Is it
the 5th Brigade? Yeah,
5th Brigade. Yeah. It's insult to call the 7th. It's the 5th. Yeah. So, but anyway, that's sort of where I went, and then in '82 I left. Headed to South Africa. I went to a place called Secunda, Sasol 2 and 3. The big petrochemical companies. I worked there, and that's when I became born again. Became a happy, clappy fellow. Studied to become a pastor. So I was going the whole duty. But of course, and then I learned on my own that there was something wrong when I started reading the Bible properly, Bible school, and I started, and it just came. I said, you keep on asking the pastor, hey, explain to me. You tell me what's going on here, and then he can't answer the question, and you know that there's a problem when he starts going around or being dishonest about it, and that's what I find is very prevalent with a lot of Christians, is they're dishonest. They won't come out and say anything. They'll try and beat all the way around it. They cannot just answer yes or no. That's the way it was. And of course, I mean, mine was before computers as well. So mine was all library. I had to go to the library and go and pull books out. And you know, it's wasn't that easy in Southern Africa, because Southern Africa is very religious. South Africa was just as religious, if not more religious than
Zimbabwe. Yeah.
Zimbabwe. And a lot of books were pulled off the shelf because anything that was against religion or anything that was atheistic was banned. So you couldn't. I mean, you could do nothing on a Sunday. I mean, if you know, everything was closed on a Sunday. Any live bands or anything like that, you'd get arrested. You know, so it was very, very religious. I mean, Zims was never religious, that religious. I mean, you could still go and buy beer on a Sunday, whatever.
Yes.
But South Africa, everything, the shops were closed, everything. You couldn't go anywhere on a Sunday. Sunday was closed. The high street, OK Bazaars, Pick and Pay, the whole lot shut. If you wanted stuff for the weekend, you had to make sure you bought it on the Saturday, and you had enough beer for your braai on the Sunday if you were having a braai, and you had enough coke and everything like that, because you may have got the little corner cafe open for cigarettes or a garage open, but basically everything else was closed, all your spas and everything like that. So it was very, very religious, and I think a lot of people don't realize how religious it was during the early 80s, you know, 70s, 80s. Very, very much so. And I mean, it was the apartheid era. The NG Kerk, I don't know if you've heard of them, the Gevormde Kerk. It's a sort of comes Holland. I think it's a Netherlands or Holland's religion that was actually redone in South Africa, became the Reformed Church.
Oh yeah, yes.
That's
by the Lutherans, isn't it?
It's
or the Dutch Reformed Church.
Dutch Reformed. That's the English word I'm thinking of. Dutch Reformed Church. Yeah. And of course they were very well. That was actually the running of apartheid, wasn't it? Biblical scriptures said that. The black man was not human. It goes back to, I think it's the
curse of Noah. Is
correct.
Yeah. The one that's so that Noah was naked. Yeah. And he looked and he didn't cover his father.
Correct. Yeah. And I don't know, that's such a stupid story anyway. He looked into his father. I mean, but anyway, that was the curse of Ham. And that's actually where a lot of the slavery came about, and that's what pushed the apartheid, as far as I was concerned. That's one of the main things was the Reformed Church, the Dutch Reformed Church.
See. Yeah.
I must just switch on the chat here. We've got a chat here, and somebody is chatting here with us as well.
Oh, I see.
Okay, yeah. Do you think so?
Yeah, I can see Jew there.
Yeah. It was the Nederlands Hervormde Kerk, one of the largest ones. Yeah. So that was actually what was pushing South Africa as far as I was concerned. But I wasn't a member of that church. I was, of course, in the 80s.
Pentecostal.
I was a Pentecostal. The NG Kerk was they were going to hell. Everybody was going to hell except us.
That's the thing that is in a lot of Christian ideologies, like Christian doctrines, that you always feel more special than everyone else, when in actual fact you're not. Everyone is exactly the same, because they try to inculcate this in your mind that you are special,
I think you also especially you guys also believe that the Pope was the Antichrist, even down to the colors. The purple and the sitting on the Whore of Nations and all this stuff. That's what we actually believe, that was actually the Antichrist. That was they were the fellas that were causing the damnation of the world.
Yeah, we in the end time message, we believe that the Antichrist was actually the Pope.
Yeah, correct.
The Catholic Pope,
Yeah,
and we believed that, the number 666 actually comes from the symbols that are
on
actually on his
yeah, on his crown.
yes, on his on his crown, sorry, where it says Vicarius Filii Dei, like the vicar of the Son of God. And if you put it in Latin and you calculate like V equals to 5, this equals to that, you'll get
We're
666.
exactly the same. I mean, even down to the color, the purple, which is
Yeah.
purple is the color of the Catholic Church as well. So he was wearing, everything is down to the Pope being the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Very, very similar to you in that belief. I think a lot of born again people believe that, and of course, meantime, they don't actually realize that they are just a branch of Catholicism anyway.
Yeah, because the Catholics were the original, they were the original church.
Yeah,
and they probably even owe their existence to the Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church could have decided to actually hide all the literature and,
Well, I think the Catholic Church destroyed a lot of literature. I mean, there's a lot of literature that was destroyed by any of the other Christians that opposed them, because the Catholic Church actually destroyed, killed more of their own kind than what the Romans did, because they also persecuted the Christians. You see,
yes,
this was
in the Dark Ages. Yeah.
There was what's the other one? I forget his name now. He said that the only true church was the Catholic Church, and all the other churches were heresy. I forget his name now. It'll come to me.
Yeah.
And then,
so when you left the Pentecostal church, did you become an active atheist, or because there's a difference. I'm not sure about you, because I've never asked you this question, because there are atheists who just like stay in their own house, they have their own ideas about things, or are you an active member? Do you go to conventions, conferences, and network with other atheists and stuff like that?
well, originally, when I first pulled away from that, I dabbled in spiritualism. I dabbled in quite a few things, because I wasn't sure. I knew religion was completely off the radar, but I still dabbled in. I still had to. There was still something pulling me, saying that there must be something. There's got to be something. You see, something that you.
That is very, very interesting that you mentioned that, because I also went that route too. I went into like a new age religion kind of things, like Deepak Chopra. I even went into Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. The yogis from India, transcendental meditation. Those kind of things. I went into those too.
I think our journey is very similar in that way, because I think with the loss of religion, you need still that something that says that there's got to be, because I think, like especially myself, because I was brought up as a Catholic, and then obviously I moved over to Pentecostal side of things, but and I think it's inherent in a lot of humankind that you need something like that to believe in. I think we're short wired to believe that we are something very, very special.
Yeah.
And we don't want we can't believe that we are not special. We believe that we are very special, and that we cannot just die. We cannot just stop living. We've got to carry on living. And I think that's also a problem that we have, because we can't think further than, well, we can't understand what it'd be like without me being around.
Yes. And there could be a genetic basis to that, actually, that there is some encoding within the genes itself that want the perpetuation of life. And this genetic encoding actually does end up influencing the way how our brains are hardwired, that we end up thinking like that. We always think about transcendence, when in actual fact, life is just this life. And when you are gone, it's zero.
And then I think that's the thing. You can't believe that your life is so over and done with, and you'll be forgotten. You think in yourself. You think because you can, the only thing that you feel is yourself. Really, you feel people that you love around you, and you can't believe that they're gone. But yourself as well. You think that you're too important. You know, you're above the animal kingdom. It doesn't matter if an animal dies. You know, you'll put a dog that's suffering out of its misery, its suffering. But somebody who's got a complete disease that wants to actually that's completely crippled or cannot say motor neuron disease or something like that wants to end his life, that cannot put up with the pain and everything like that, and people stop him from doing it. I think that is so wrong, because we won't let an animal suffer, but we'll let a human suffer. And I know you're a registered nurse, and your oath says to save people. So I don't know what you feel about that.
No, I'm pro. If someone is suffering, I would advocate that if they decide that they want to end their life, it's their right to do it. I've seen so much suffering as a registered nurse in the hospitals, you know, dealing with a lot of terminal cancers, incurable diseases of mutation and stuff like that. And you do see that there's no quality of life. And these people will be begging, like, can you just let me be? Can you just let me go? You know? And here we are doing everything possible to save their life when they don't want to be alive anymore. I think it is an injustice. It is actually one of the injustices of our current time, that we actually doing this to people. We should really be, all nations that are progressive should really be stopping and saying, look, we need to look at this and stop, you know.
I mean, you know, obviously there's got to be a line, you know, where you say, you know, the person is not, otherwise somebody will just say, oh, I'm feeling unhappy today, I want to kill myself. That's not the same thing as somebody
that's different.
That's suffering every day with horrendous pain, and you know they're living like a or somebody that's in a vegetative state, that's in hospital, that's just not there. You know, and machines or machines are keeping them alive because their loved ones don't want to let them go. I think that's selfish.
Yeah, it is very selfish. I don't know whether you heard this story that it happened like maybe 6-7 months ago, about the Australian scientist who went to, I think he went to the Netherlands. I think it was that. I think his name was Goddard. He was a scientist, and he was 98 years old, and he went there to end his life. He was not suffering or unwell, but he was very, very old. And he said, look, I'm so old to the point where I don't really enjoy life anymore. And there's not much to my life anyway. So I want to decide how I'm going to die. I think when people are, they should actually be given the right to determine how they exit this life. You know?
Correct. Yeah, I think I agree with you on that. And I think some of the, is it the Netherlands or Sweden? Some of the places like that do. You can go to Geneva and have put yourself down. But then people that help their parents or their loved ones to go there, say in this country, from this country to there, when they get back, they get arrested for assisted murder as such.
Yeah, which is totally ludicrous.
It's ridiculous.
But if you think about it, you and me can talk about these issues and sort of understand them from where we are. Imagine places like Africa or Zimbabwe or Southern Africa, where religion is a big thing. You see, these issues are not even on the radar for discussion, you see?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you just have to look at the Zim site, and also look at any debate site. Look at our debate site. Any Christian that comes on straight away cannot accept that the way we are talking now. It's just a no-no. It's the same with abortion. I mean, if it's it's a woman's right to choose that. It's her body. I mean, and it's not really a religious discussion that really, but the Christians seem to, or the religious, all religions, not just the Christians, I must say, because you've got the Muslims and that it's the same way. You know that life is very special, and you know, and life is started in the womb. But if you read the Bible, it hasn't.
Yeah, and you see, a lot of religious people, like if you check in our groups, they always ask you this question, like, "Oh, look, it is us that believe these things. Why are you concerned about it? Why do you have to intervene? Just let us be." But if you see from how we are discussing here, you can tell that religion does color how you actually interpret the world and how you actually make decisions about other people. And it encroaches into the areas of civil liberties and human rights and stuff like that.
When kids are not forced to have religion jammed down their throat at school, you know, religion should be taught. Oh, all religion must be taught, because
yes.
Along with all mythology should be taught, because as far as I'm concerned, all religion is mythology. But I mean, it all should be taught because it's part of our culture, it's part of our heritage, and very, very much that the African people have lost is their own culture where that's concerned. They've taken on the European Western religion, because people like to say it's an African religion. It's not. It's
not. Roman. Definitely, it's not.
It's Roman. It's Western religion. And they've lost their own culture where that's concerned. Because I know.
That's a very, very, very critical point that you raise, because I always try to say to them, look, you should know that your mythologies, your views about the origin of the universe, so all these things were just mythology anyway. When if you look at it, but they are at par, they're at the same level with the Genesis stories. There's nothing that is special about the Genesis story that is very, very different from how African peoples imagined how the world started. It's only that you Africans didn't really put pen to paper and start to write about these things, you know. But if you go to the Aborigines here in Australia, they've got their own origin stories, you know. You might read them and say, oh, these are very ridiculous stories. But the Christian origin story is also a very ridiculous story. It has got talking snakes and all these things. So Africans have lost, I don't know, I'm still to put my finger on it and whether to make a correct diagnosis and say, is it because of what happened with colonialism, or is it because Africans, when we were colonized, we looked at ourselves, we're mostly hunter-gatherer societies, we probably looked at ourselves, looked at the white man, with the advances that the white man had, like in his education and stuff like that. And we thought, oh, this guy has actually made some progress, you know? So we must be backwards. We must adopt what he has come with, you know? Because there's a very interesting story. I don't know whether you know this story about Zimbabwe, where one of the first people to be executed by the colonists when they came was a guy called Chaminuka, you know. And this Chaminuka guy is actually, he's thought to be a prophet by most Zimbabweans, but he's thought to have said, like, look, there is these people that will come and they will have pale skin, and they will not have any knees, you know. But what he meant was that they wear trousers, you see. I personally don't believe that it was a prophecy. I think this Chaminuka guy, because he was actually one of the chiefs there, he used to go to Mozambique and trade with the Portuguese in gold and stuff like that. And he saw the Portuguese. And then he came back and informed these people that he knew that definitely these people would encroach inwards as time goes on. He knew it was going to be, you know. So he told them that these people will come. So a lot of people take him to be like a a prophet of some sort, but I don't think he was, you see. So you always have these legends in societies that are sort of very tribal and still very primitive kind of societies, with these legends that become religion, you know.
They grow into religion.
Yes, yes. So it's possible too that the Jesus story started like that, started as just like a story that affected a few people, and then as the story got told over and over again to a few different other peoples, it took a life of its own,
Yeah, I think that's a lot of people like Bart Ehrman and that sort of stuff believe that a Jesus figure did walk the earth, and that's where the legend grew from. I'm more on the mythicist side. I believe it was a complete and utter myth. People like Paul with his visions and that probably is what started it off. It was all imaginary, and just so happened that it grew with the help of Paul, and then of course Constantine realizing that the pagans had a lot of money in their temples, and it was an easy way to bring the into Jesus Christ story. So and that's how it carried on going. I think that's how the legend grew.
Which brings us to the point where if you combine religion and politics, you have a potent poison,
You have an accident waiting for a place to happen. Yes.
And this is exactly the tragedy in Africa now, that if you look, I don't know whether you know about Uganda and the Ugandan government's stance on gay rights and stuff like that. If you look at Zimbabwe, if you look at the homophobia in Southern Africa,
bad,
there is the state actually working hand in glove with religion to actually prevent gay people from having their rights recognized and realized by the law.
You can just see it on the Zim site. As soon as you mention gay or homosexual, that's it. They go off on a tangent, to hate them and kill them, and it's terrible. And that's coming from Christians telling kill a person, and that's a Christian talking. It's ridiculous.
It is horrible.
The homophobic and well, I don't know, the gender fluid stuff gets my goat. That's the thing that I can't get my head around. I don't know whether you into this gender fluid and where one day you can be a boy, the next day you can be a girl, and that's a bit too much for me.
My view is that I do agree that there is a spectrum, and all human beings fall within the spectrum, and you do have other people that can be on the spectrum where they can sort of bounce into this and bounce into that. My only concern is that with children, with little children, that little children should not actually be influenced by parents. You see, I think that's where we're getting into a little bit of a dangerous zone,
a gray zone when parents come in and start influencing the children, like saying, well, you don't have to, you're not a boy, you're not a girl, you're a boy, finished. Until you're old enough to know different, you're a boy. And I mean, look, there's a lot of people that are trapped, a lot of men that's trapped in women's bodies, and a lot of women that's trapped in men's body that I haven't got a problem with. I really don't.
True.
Homosexuality is not, I have no problem with that either. Christians, especially from Africa, always scream out about pro recreation and animals don't do that. So why must humans do it? Meantime, animals do
it. Which is a wrong conclusion, because animals do that.
Correct. I mean that's the normal one is animals don't do it, and God didn't create animals don't do it, so it's against nature. But it's not against nature, is it?
So you never really answered me when I said, do you actively participate in groups like in the UK? Like, you know?
I'm a humanist. Yeah, I don't get around much. So it's mostly on the internet. I belong
All right.
to the Manchester Humanist Society. I'm also part of the
All right.
British Humanist Society.
Yeah.
I'm also part of the Temple of Satan's group that's across in the States. You've heard of the
All
Temple?
right.
You know, Temple
Yes.
of
Yes.
Satan. They're just
Yeah. Yeah.
they're just a really political organization against Christianity taking over schools and that sort of stuff, or
Yeah.
putting like the Ten Commandments up in the middle of of a town center. So they'll go
Yeah.
and put up the
The
statue of
statue of.
Baphomet, yeah, with
Yeah.
the seven tenants, whatever, you know. So yeah, I get active that way. Unfortunately, my health is not the best, so I don't get out much. So uh,
I
that's
see.
mine is purely sitting back in my chair and
Yes.
actually doing that way, and also obviously Patreon and supporting. That's another way of supporting humanism, and guys like Richard Carrier, and those sort of guys
Mhm.
that it's important their work. I don't know if you've read any Richard Carrier work.
Actually, I bought one of his books. I haven't read it yet. You know, who is the guy that takes the view that Jesus Christ didn't actually exist? Is it?
Yeah, he takes the view that Jesus is a myth. Now,
Yeah.
this guy's got his stuff is peer reviewed. A lot of his books are peer reviewed, so you must know that he's a historian, right?
Mm.
And his books, well, a lot of his work is peer reviewed, and it's excellent. He goes into everything, so it's a good thing to actually read. I don't know which book you got.
I'll have
On
to
the on
read
the on the
his works. Yeah.
on the historicity of Jesus is a peer reviewed historic book. The
Oh.
historians have checked it, and you'll see how he works through um, the whole birth of everything and how it works up through history, because he's a historian. He's a PhD in history.
All
He's
right.
very good. Also, do yourself a favor, just on YouTube, search Richard Carrier and listen to some of his debates. He's very good
Definitely.
talks.
Well, I would definitely do that. I would
Yeah.
definitely do that.
All right, Charles. I think we've been talking for about an hour with some bit.
Time flies, isn't it, when you're having fun?
Yeah, that's it. Anything else you'd like to add, buddy? I think we've gone through quite a bit. Perhaps we can another time come back online and
that's what I was thinking, that we could have like follow-up discussions, you know,
yeah, we could
try
make
to
it
rope a few other people, and like, you know, if we could try to, because you see, we cannot, you and me cannot go to Africa all the time, you know. I consider this part of my own charitable contributions to African education, you know.
Yeah, well,
so we could have discussions where we rope in a few people and say, look, come and listen, me and you, we could have just a discussion like this one.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few good, very, very learned guys in our group that possibly could join us.
Yes.
And then we might just have to work times, because a lot of the guys can't come on at this time. You know, they're at work. I can, well, obviously holiday today, but a lot of them are at work during the day. So, you know, 10 o'clock in the morning, they cannot come on. You know, whereas we have to swap it around, where if it's your day off, you come on the 10 o'clock spot, and the guys can come on at 9 o'clock in the evening spot, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think? I would just leave it to you. You be the coordinator of it. You let us know, you let me know, and you let me know in good time. I'm always flexible, and I'll tell you, look, I can make some time for it, you know.
Yeah, as long as we can send you a reminder.
Yes. Nearly forgot. I was actually watching a movie, a crappy movie, actually.
Well, then it was worth leaving the movie for.
Yeah, it was.
All right, Charles, I'm going to cut the broadcast now. Just hang on there. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Charles.